Karen blocked my pregnant sister from the elevator. I'm a presidential security officer. My name is Elijah Brooks, and I've protected presidents, dignitaries, and heads of state for 15 years. But nothing prepared me for the moment I watched my pregnant sister get blocked from using the elevator by a woman with a fake badge and a vendetta. We moved into Marigold Towers 2 months before everything happened. I say we because family, for me, is not a word, it's an instinct. After our mother passed, it was just me and Naomi. She's younger by 6 years, always brilliant, stubborn, and the kind of woman who could teach herself plumbing in a day, if it meant not calling a man. Naomi was 7 months pregnant when her doctor recommended strict rest. Her husband was deployed, and I had leave coming up. It made sense move in, stay close, help her prepare. She'd found the Marigold rental herself, high-rise, central air, safe community. That last part was a lie. It started with passive notes slipped under our door. Please use service elevator. Residents deserve priority. Pregnancy does not exempt one from courtesy. Trash bins must be wheeled out before 7 a.m. Violators will be fined. Fined, there was no mention of fines in the lease, and certainly no mention of an HOA, but apparently there was one, or so said Karen Fletcher. Floor 11, Unit A. She wore khakis and a navy polo embroidered with Marigold Oversight Committee, always carried a walkie-talkie and clipboard. She called herself interim president and barked orders like she ran the place. Most people just avoided her, but Naomi was too exhausted to navigate stairs and too proud to ask me to make a scene. The first clash happened on a Wednesday afternoon. I'd stepped out for groceries. By the time I came back, Naomi was crouched in the hallway, pale, trembling, her water bottle empty and her breath ragged. She wouldn't let me in, Naomi whispered. Who, Karen? Said I needed an access code. I told her I live here. She said I didn't look registered. My knuckles cracked before my brain caught up. I found Karen by the mailboxes. She was filing something, maybe fake citations, maybe nonsense. You blocked my sister from the elevator, I asked. She didn't flinch. There are procedures. You people always think you're exempt from rules. I stared. You people. You tenants who think pregnancy is a pass. I work for the executive branch of this country. The only rules I don't follow are fake ones. She stepped closer, chin raised. This is a private association. You don't run things here. She had no idea who I was, but she would. Karen Fletcher wasn't just a petty busybody, she was strategic. After our first confrontation in the lobby, I expected her to back down. Most people do when you confront them with calm facts and unwavering confidence. But Karen, she doubled down. The next morning, Naomi tried to use the elevator to get to her OB appointment. She never made it out of the lobby. 8:15 a.m. I wasn't with her. I was on a call with my detail commander when my phone buzzed 3 times, Naomi's silent emergency signal. I dropped the line, grabbed my ID, and took the stairs down 12 floors in under 2 minutes. When I got to the lobby, it looked like a scene from a movie. Karen stood planted in front of the elevator, arms crossed, chin lifted in a smug little tilt. Naomi, visibly distressed and winded, leaned against the wall, cradling her stomach. 2 other residents, a mother with her young daughter and an elderly man, watched awkwardly from a distance. She's not allowed on this elevator, Karen barked, catching sight of me. This lift is for compliant residents only. She's in her 3rd trimester, I said tightly. She needs to sit down. Now. Karen pointed at her clipboard. According to Regulation 3B, unsupervised tenant guests using the elevator without written authorization from the Oversight Committee will be subject to notice. There is no Oversight Committee. I said, I checked with the property management. They've never approved or recognized an HOA here. Karen didn't even blink. This building voted on new rules 2 years ago. You're welcome to leave if you don't like them. Show me the vote. Show me the authorization. She waved the clipboard in the air. This is private property? No. It's public access residential with shared elevators. And you don't have jurisdiction? Karen stepped forward, closing the space between us. Her perfume was overwhelming, something citrusy, fake. I'll have you evicted. Naomi gasped sharply, her body trembling. Elijah, that was all it took. I turned to the residents watching. Someone call 911. My sister's in distress, and this woman is illegally blocking medical access. Karen shrieked. I am the one maintaining order here. Paramedics arrived 4 minutes later. Naomi refused to go to the hospital. She insisted she'd be fine once she could lie down, but the EMTs made a note of the obstruction. One of them, a tall man with a calm voice, looked Karen dead in the eye and said, if she'd collapsed, and we had to call that in, ma'am, you'd be looking at serious charges. Karen stammered about community rules. The EMT replied, you're not a cop, and this isn't your building. It was the first time someone outside our family had challenged her so directly. And I wasn't done. That night, I went online and filed an official complaint with the city's Department of Housing. I attached witness statements, video footage from the building's lobby security cam, thanks to a helpful concierge who quietly slipped me a flash drive, and copies of Karen's bogus HOA regulations. Then I reached out to the building's management company, an out-of-state firm that apparently hadn't visited in over a year. I asked for a meeting. When they declined, I used my official clearance to escalate through their legal department. A day later, I got a call back. Mr. Brooks, said the voice, nervous. Are you really with the Presidential Protective Division? Yes, I said. And right now, my sister's being harassed by someone impersonating an authority figure in one of your buildings. There was silence. Then we'll fly someone out by Friday. Karen didn't retreat. She waged a full-on psychological war. The next day, where signs appeared in the elevator and lobby elevator use restricted medical exemptions must be approved. Any tenant who threatens committee members will be reported. New fines for unregistered guests, $250. She taped one to our door, then another one, then three. We came home one afternoon to find a printed letter slid under the door. Your presence in Marigold Towers has created division, hostility, and disorder. We demand your immediate compliance with building standards or prepare to vacate. She signed it on behalf of the HOA. It was pure intimidation, but the residents were watching now. Whispers started in the hallway. Eyes lingered on Karen longer. A few people began greeting Naomi by name. One of them, a middle-aged woman named Tanya, knocked quietly and said, she did the same thing to my cousin last year. He was in a wheelchair. She made him use the freight lift. That was all I needed. I started collecting testimonies. Anonymously, at first, people were still scared. One man had been fined for coughing too loud on his balcony. A college student said Karen tried to report her as a squatter because she was black and didn't seem like she belonged. Another woman broke down in tears as she described Karen cornering her about unauthorized family visits during her divorce. Karen wasn't enforcing order. She was waging control through humiliation. And worse, no one had ever truly stopped her. Friday came, and with it, a man in a navy suit and a woman with a notepad walked into the lobby and introduced themselves as representatives from the building's legal department. Karen intercepted them immediately. I hope you're here to support our governance procedures, she said brightly. They didn't even look at her. Ms. Fletcher, the woman replied. We're here to review reports of misconduct. Karen laughed nervously. Misconduct? I've done nothing but uphold community standards. Which community approved these standards? Karen blinked. The man pulled out a thick folder. These documents were never submitted through official channels, and the building never approved a resident-led governance committee. What you're running here is at best an unsanctioned club. At worst, it's impersonation. Karen's voice sharpened. You have no idea what I've done for this building. Oh, we do, the woman said coolly. We have 12 statements from tenants, video footage, and a formal complaint from a federal officer. Karen's face turned a color I'd never seen. She looked at me, finally realizing. You, she whispered. I nodded. Me. Karen didn't go quietly. Even after being told point blank that her so-called authority had no legal standing, she still acted like the building was her kingdom and the elevators were her throne room. But the cracks in her illusion had begun to show, and this time, they spread fast. The building was no longer watching her with fear. It was watching her with scrutiny. 2 days after the legal team's visit, I got a call from Tanya, the neighbor who first confided in me. You need to get to the lobby. Now. I didn't hesitate. By the time I reached the ground floor, there were at least 10 residents standing in a circle. In the middle, Karen, red-faced, yelling at an older man in a motorized wheelchair. I told you, the service elevator is for special equipment, she shouted. You people slow everything down. The man, Mr. Chan, a retired aerospace engineer from 12B, looked mortified. You can't speak to him like that, someone said. Karen turned. He's a fire hazard. The hallway has width regulations, another voice. That's not true. My aunt lives here too, and she uses a walker. Karen's hand was shaking, holding up a paper flyer. I have every right to regulate elevator use. It's in the standards. Someone snatched the flyer. This was printed at Staples. Karen froze. I stepped forward slowly. This is harassment. This is ableism. And this is the end. She snapped toward me. You think just because you carry a government badge, you can come here and ruin what I built? No, I said, you ruined it. I just turned the lights on. That night, I finalized a package for the city's Housing Oversight Commission. It included a 7-minute video of Karen berating Naomi, Mr. Chan, and Tanya, a PDF compiling 17 resident testimonies, screenshots of all her notices, including her self-appointed elevator surveillance program, official documentation from the building's legal team invalidating the HOA. Within 72 hours, I received confirmation a cease and desist order had been filed against Karen Fletcher. But the consequences didn't stop there, because Karen had been collecting money. She called them voluntary maintenance donations. Some tenants, especially the elderly, had paid monthly, believing they were official building fees. One widow had paid over $1,800. Now it was wire fraud, and wire fraud triggers federal jurisdiction. Karen was finally reported to the city attorney's office. A prosecutor specializing in housing abuse opened a formal investigation. The building's corporate office also began eviction proceedings, citing egregious violations of tenant rights and impersonation of management personnel. When the marshal came to deliver the notice, Karen refused to answer the door. She blasted opera music from inside. She posted martyr of order signs on her window. She started leaving typed manifestos in the lobby about how society was collapsing because certain people refused to follow rules. But no one was listening anymore. The elevators moved freely. Naomi started smiling again. And Mr. Chan. He rolled down the hall like a king. The day Karen's access badge was deactivated, we celebrated. Tanya brought cupcakes. Naomi laughed for the first time in weeks. I got permission to install a chair in the elevator, specifically for pregnant tenants or elderly guests. A sign was posted above the buttons. This elevator is for all residents. No permits, no harassment, no exceptions. It didn't take long for the building to start organizing its first real community meeting. This time, democratically. Open invitations. No gatekeeping. No phony titles. Just people. Rebuilding trust. She tried to sue, filed a handwritten claim against the building, against me, even against Naomi for emotional damages caused by disobedient tenants and federal interference. It was thrown out in less than a week. The judge, a woman with steel gray hair and zero tolerance for theatrics, looked Karen in the eye and said, "You do not speak for the law. You do not speak for this building, and you certainly don't speak for justice." Karen turned crimson. That was the last time anyone saw her in Marigold Towers. She moved out at midnight, 3 days later. No goodbyes, no apologies, just silence. Marigold Towers exhaled. That's the best way I can describe it, like the building itself had been holding its breath for years, waiting for someone to say out loud what everyone had silently felt. Karen Fletcher didn't protect this place. She poisoned it. But now, without her presence, the air felt easier to breathe. The elevators felt lighter. The walls, once plastered with flyers and threats, stood clean and bare. For the first time since Naomi and I moved in, we could hear the sound of children laughing in the hallways without someone barking at them to be quiet. It was like sunlight pouring through a window, we didn't know had been boarded up. The first official tenant meeting was held in the courtyard. No more living room cabals or whispered complaints in the stairwells. We printed invites on colored paper and taped them to each door with the simple heading, "Let's build something better." We weren't sure how many would show, but nearly 50 residents turned up. Even Mr. Chan, wheeling himself between chairs, offered copies of a hand-drawn sketch showing how we could redesign the lobby space to include more accessible seating and softer lighting. Naomi, now nearly 9 months pregnant, stood beside me, hand resting on her belly, and said, "I used to think no one cared, but maybe we were just never given permission to." A few people clapped. Someone passed out lemonade. The meeting began not with rules, but with a question. "What does a safe home feel like to you?" Tanya said, "A place where no one is watched like a criminal for being pregnant." Another woman said, "Somewhere I can cry in the hallway and know someone will help, not shame me." One man, a young teacher, added, "A home where authority isn't a weapon." That became our unofficial motto. 3 weeks later, we held a proper election, not for power, but for service. We called it the Marigold Care Team. No one held president status. All decisions were reviewed publicly. Residents rotated responsibilities every 3 months to prevent hierarchy and burnout. I didn't run. I didn't need to. But I helped write the charter, using everything I'd learned in national security. Transparency saves lives. So does access. So does empathy. Naomi, with her experience in community advocacy, helped organize workshops for first-time renters and immigrant families navigating building policies. The building transformed, not overnight, but steadily. We created a shared pantry in the basement for essentials, a no-judgment help request box in the mailroom, a once-a-month elevator cleaning party. Yes, people actually volunteered, and nobody needed a badge to participate. A month after Karen moved out, a letter arrived in the building's group inbox. From her, typed, cold, laced with bitterness. "You've invited chaos. You've welcomed lawlessness. This will fall apart without order, and you'll come crawling back to the structure I gave you." Some residents wanted to burn it. Others laughed. I made a suggestion we frame it, not to honor her, but to remind ourselves of what we survived. We mounted it in the community boardroom with a plaque underneath, in memory of what we will never be again. Late one evening, Naomi called out from her room, "It's time." The building went into gentle motion. Tanya stayed with our bags. Mr. Chan sent a text that said, "You've got this." A neighbor offered to drive, but I insisted I wanted to be the one beside her, the way I had been since the start. 12 hours later, my niece was born. She was named Hope Marigold Brooks. Hope for what Naomi never lost. Marigold for the building that taught us how to rebuild what fear once fractured. When I held her in my arms, I whispered, "No one will ever block your way again." 3 months after Karen's removal, Marigold Towers was named one of the top 10 most resident-friendly high-rises by the city. The same building once known for anonymous fines and elevator wars was now the site of open mic nights in the courtyard, a rooftop garden co-managed by teens and seniors, monthly baby showers and birthday potlucks. Karen used fear to control. We used community to heal. When people ask me what it felt like that moment when Karen Fletcher finally left Marigold Towers for good, I don't say relief. That would be too easy. I say this, it felt like the return of balance. Because sometimes injustice doesn't look like a weapon or a war. Sometimes it wears khakis, smiles politely, and holds a clipboard. Sometimes injustice just takes the form of a locked elevator and a pregnant woman left alone in a hallway. Injustice. It begins when someone says enough. Marigold Towers is alive in ways I never thought possible. The lobby, once sterile and cold, is now a gallery of hand-painted murals done by the building's kids. Naomi helped them with the sketches before Hope was born. Every panel shows a version of Home Open Doors, people laughing, hands helping hands. The elevators run without fear now. The elevator rules sign has been replaced with a single sentence, used with kindness. Hope is 6 months old. She giggles when the elevator dings. Sometimes I wonder if she remembers that tension from the womb, the stress Karen caused her mother in those last months. But then she smiles, and I remind myself we broke that cycle before it reached her. Naomi glows now. She's become the building's go-to neighbor for everything from medical referrals to maternity support. She started a Mothers of Marigold group weekly tea, shared stories, soft spaces for hard conversations. This building raised itself from ruin, not with construction, but with conversation. 2 months after her eviction, Karen was formally charged with impersonation, falsification of financial documents, and harassment of vulnerable tenants. The district attorney's office didn't play. She didn't end up in prison. She struck a plea deal probation, a hefty fine, mandatory community service in a housing shelter. I'm not bitter about it. Not everyone needs a cage. Some just need a mirror. But she can never return to Marigold Towers. That, the court made clear. She tried to sue again. She lost again. And with each failed attempt, her name faded further. Not in vengeance, just into irrelevance. What we created wasn't just a community, it was a blueprint. News spread, other buildings called, asking how we restructured without letting ego or control take over. We shared our documents. We invited them to join calls. Some even sent thank you notes, saying they just voted to dissolve toxic HOAs and replace them with resident care teams. We didn't fight Karen just to be free of her. We fought her because we had to choose who we were going to be once we realized no one was coming to rescue us. And maybe that's the hardest truth I've learned through all this. The only thing stronger than false authority is collective dignity. There's a moment I replay in my mind. It was 2 weeks ago. Hope had her first fever. Nothing serious, but enough to send Naomi and me rushing to urgent care. We bundled her in a blanket, grabbed her diaper bag, and ran to the elevator. As the doors opened, I hesitated, not from fear, but from memory. Naomi caught it too. Her eyes found mine, and for just a heartbeat, we both saw that day Karen's arm blocking the door, Naomi's hand on her belly, struggling for breath. But this time the elevator was empty, waiting. Hours. We stepped inside. 3 generations of resilience, and the doors closed without resistance. Karen blocked a pregnant woman from using an elevator. She did it in the name of rules. She did it because she thought no one would challenge her. But behind that clipboard was a woman who built power out of silence. And behind that silence were dozens of people who thought they were alone. They weren't. You're not. Maybe there's a Karen in your building, in your office, in your neighborhood board. Maybe they don't carry a badge, but they wield shame, intimidation, exclusion. Maybe they're not loud. Maybe they're passive-aggressive, but you feel it, the weight of their control. So here's my question to you. What would you do if someone blocked access to safety, to dignity, to home? Would you challenge them? Would you gather others? Would you rise? Because justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it rides quietly up 12 floors and opens when you press the button.